This week on the Baseline Podcast, Josh and I talk about the Super Bowl. We talk about what we liked, what we didn't like. We talk about the ins and outs. What did the Rams do right? What did the Bengals do wrong? What could have changed the game? And so much more. And then we discuss our predictions, way too early predictions for next year. All that and so much more coming up on the Baseline Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Baseline here with Ben and Josh. And it's Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, Josh.
Thank you, Ben.
And it's the day after the Super Bowl, hence why the video is not out on a Monday. You might be like, wait, what's going on? Hey, we had to have time to watch it, or I had to watch the highlights because it was, like midnight here. And I'm like, I'm not staying up for that to go to work next day, unless it was the Browns. Don't get me wrong. But as you can see, we're kind of decked out in our own little attire. You can take it as you will. Jared, I love you, Jared.
We're repping the Tupac. There should have been a hologram at halftime, but they did play his songs and the 90s hip-hop vibe. It just felt right.
And of course, I'm wearing the Browns because, Jared, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you did not win a Super Bowl yet. It's okay. You'll get there one day. But since I didn't watch it live action, I kind of watched highlights. I picked up, stats and all that stuff. I'm going to let Josh kind of lead this and kind of let's talk through the game and what your thoughts were. And maybe like what your thoughts were right before it started and then as the game went on. So Josh, take it away.
Yeah. So I can't remember the score that I predicted, but I know I did pick the Rams to have the slight edge in this one. And I thought that the defensive effort that they had this postseason was going to make an impact in this game. That was going to give them the win. And now that we've seen the game, I mean, that kind of ended up being the case. 23-20 Rams, not very high, maybe not as high scoring as what we would have thought, given that the Rams and Bengals both have some good offenses. But the Rams defense did make some plays that the Bengals defense just was not able to, and that ended up making the difference. But anyway, let's go through this. So Rams get on the board first with a touchdown. Bengals respond with a field goal. Rams get another TD later in the first half, but they fumble the snap on the extra point attempt, and it ends up only being 13-3, which that does kind of affect the game later on because of the scoring. Like the Bengals needed a touchdown late, or would have needed a touchdown late, not just the field goal to tie it up. So we'll touch on that later. But Bengals end up getting a touchdown later that half, so it's 13-10 at the half. What really I thought almost swung the game, though, was the Bengals start to the second half. They get that one play, 75-yard touchdown to T. Higgins.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Rams take possession next, throw an interception on the first play, and the Bengals have a chance to get another touchdown, go up 24-13 here, and just steal all the momentum from the Rams in their home stadium. But Rams defense comes up strong, holds them to just a field goal in their own territory. So it's a W. They are giving up 10 quick points to start the second half, but it could have been worse.
And with their offense, you knew, like even though I knew the highlights of the game, I knew who won. Like when that moment hit, right? Like I knew the Rams are thinking, hey, we're still in this. Our defense is good. We're getting pressure. We have one of the most high-powered offenses in the NFL. When you have Cooper Kupp sitting there, it's like all Stafford has to do is just get him the ball, right? And I think I was talking with some of my Bengals fans, and they said they weren't even comfortable even getting the lead. They were like, they needed to extend it. And it's kind of like the Ohio State game, a few years ago. They played, I forget who they were playing. And it was similar. It was like Ohio State would get a field goal, and then the team kept chipping back. And it's like, I think the Bengals needed to put the stake in the ground, and they needed to end it fast. Because if you get up, let's say you said it, like what, 24-13 or even 20,
24-13.
Yeah. Right? And let's say then you get a stop, you get a field goal, 27-13. That's a 14-point swing that they're going to have to make, which is hard in the NFL because teams run the clock. We both know if you have a good running game, you can run the clock for 7 minutes. And I think that's where I think was that first chance, and probably the biggest chance that the Bengals had to really change perspective.
Well, not to mention too, like how many leads have we seen blown this postseason, this regular season? Like these teams are getting these huge leads at the half, only to see it collapse in the second half, and then they either lose it or almost lose it. But again, in hindsight, the Bengals get a touchdown right there, and it's 24-13. I mean, the Rams only scored 23 this game. Maybe the play calling ends up changing a little bit, and we see a slightly different result. But you got to wonder if they get that touchdown. Yeah. Both sides only got another field goal the rest of that quarter, so the Bengals were up 20-16, and then they went scoreless in the fourth quarter. We'll talk about some injuries and stuff like that impacted this game, like Odell's. Maybe it impacted it. Browns fans will say it didn't, but he did have a touchdown catch to start, so it did look like he was doing a little something there early on. But Burrow ended up hurting his knee, getting sacked 1 of 7 times in this game.
Yeah.
And to me, he just didn't look the same after that watching. His throws were a little off. They were relying a little bit more on the running game than they were. And maybe something did happen there. We'll have to see if any reports come out that he was playing on like a knee injury after that or something. But he definitely didn't look the same. They didn't score any points. And then the Rams, man, this final drive that they're putting together was kind of fun to watch. There were a lot of big plays. I think they were in a 4th and 1 from their own like 31 or 32, and they put the ball in the hands of their playmaker, Cooper Kupp, jet sweep. He gets like a 6 or 7 yard carry to keep the drive alive. Later on, Rams are marching on the field. They're in the red zone now, and Bengals appear to have a 3rd down stop, I think it was, but their linebacker Wilson gets called for a defensive holding on, I think it was Kupp again. And this is when things are going to get a little kind of controversy and interesting, because the refs weren't really calling many penalties. Mm-hmm. And then it's maybe there's some conspiracy theories here, depending on how much you want to look into it. But there were a lot of penalties called in these last 2 minutes, Ben, and maybe you could say it's because the NFL wanted to see the Bengals have a chance to tie it up, send this game to overtime. They wanted the Rams to be able to score in some capacity here. These definitely were penalties. It's just these were penalties that they weren't calling that were happening all game. But nonetheless, Wilson called for defensive holding. Rams get to go on. And then I'm sure you saw Cooper Kupp take another big hit to the head from, I think it was Von Bell in the end zone, holds down for the touchdown catch, but holding on the offense, they have to replay the down because they have the targeting, the holding. Some reason those offset. So, which I didn't know could happen with a dead ball penalty.
That's what I was. Yeah.
But that did offset. Cooper Kupp, they target him again, and I can't remember which defensive player it was for the Bengals, but he's called for a clear DPI. So the Rams are getting another shot here. Stafford finds Kupp eventually in a one-on-one coverage with the best corner in the NFL, Eli Apple.
Oh, stop it!
Who do you think won that matchup, then?
Listen. He's a Buckeye.
That matchup?
Listen, he's a Buckeye, right? Like Buckeye through and through. I'll always support Eli Apple. Always will. Eli Apple needed to shut his mouth before last week. Like, he needed to learn that the best corners in the game outside of Jaylen Ramsey don't talk. They do their thing, right? And they are the best. I will say this: if you're the Bengals, I look at the receiving core of the LA Rams. I'm going, Odell's out. I would rather have them go one-on-one with any of these other guys like Bryson Hopkins, Van Jefferson, Cam Akers, Ben, can't even say the name, Sko and Ronick, whatever. I look at this and go, why not put a safety over the top, double them? I don't care. If you got anything to do, force them to run. They ran for 43 yards, Josh. They averaged 1.9 yards a carry.
That was a story too, like the lack of running game. It was non-existent. Stafford, I think, had higher yards per carry than Cam Akers did.
Yeah, so Cam Akers had 13 carries for 21 yards. Cooper Kupp had the average 7 yards on 1 carry. Henderson had 4 carries for 7 yards. Matthew Stafford had 3 carries for 6 yards. It just shows you that I will say this, and going back to kind of dissect here, my thing about the Bengals were, and I said this, I think last week, where I said, if the Bengals can somehow just somewhat slow down the Rams, right? And they could somehow slow down. And the offensive line, what did I say? The X factor for the Bengals would be the offensive line. I said that. That was my X factor. I said, if the offensive line is just half decent, if they can just protect him for the most part. What do we see? We saw an old man in Von Miller hit the rejuvenated button and come out of nowhere, right? And then we saw Aaron Donald be Aaron freaking Donald and make the Bengals offensive line look like
game-sealing play, big bull rush up the middle.
And I think give props to the Bengals. Like I'm a Browns fan to heart. I got to give prop where it's due. I mean, they made it through this postseason. They weren't supposed to be here. Like, let's be honest. The Rams, okay, you could see that. The Bengals were not predicted to be here. They weren't viewed to be here. I will say that I think the Bengals were just a little, outmatched. I think even though Matthew Stafford hasn't been there, there's just veteranism to this other team that the Bengals didn't really have. If you look across the Bengals
Von
team.
Miller has played in the Super Bowl. Aaron Donald has played in the Super Bowl.
Cooper Kupp has played in the Super Bowl. And you look at Cooper Kupp too, and I like to remind young high school athletes, he was a 0-star recruit coming out of high school. The dude had no offers. And to see what this man's doing, I like to encourage people, watch Cooper Kupp play. He is one of the most humble dudes you'll ever watch play, and he deserved the MVP. He deserved he just was that good. And my thoughts on the game though, I don't know about you, Josh, but it was like the weirdest game to watch. I know I watched the highlights, but it was just weird. It was like exciting, but like at times you're like, this kind of feels like a weird, like Goliath versus, David type action, but then not. I don't know. What were your thoughts? I was just kind of like, it was just a weird game.
I will say it looked like watching real time that the Rams were kind of controlling things. And the Bengals were kind of just getting everything in like huge boom plays. Like there wasn't any like chipping away down the field like the Rams kind of were. It was just their Bengals were going to get all or nothing. And we see that with like that 75-yard TD. I think it was to Higgins, which was that the play that there was the mysterious no call on the face mask for Ramsey. Yeah. Let's bring up Jaylen Ramsey real quick too, because the X factor was going to be the Bengals O-line. I said that X factor for both teams was going to be Jamar Chase for the Bengals and Jaylen Ramsey for the Rams. I was really looking forward to that matchup. And Ramsey kind of spent a little bit of time on both him and Higgins, but Higgins ends up getting that face mask where he kind of grabs Ramsey's face mask, slings him down, ends up making the catch, and there's just no call there. Ramsey ended the day. He allowed 5 catches. 4 of them were combined between Higgins and Chase, and they were for 143 yards, a couple touchdowns. And according to Next Gen Stats, it was the most yards Ramsey has allowed as the nearest defender in his career, postseason and regular season. So while he only did allow 5 catches, which you guys say, well, that's not so bad guarding some of the best receivers in the league. It's just that they were all on these deep plays that were allowing the Bengals to stay in the game.
Well, yeah, but I think you also look at it too, Josh, even that last 4th and 1 or whatever it was with Burrow, that if he would have had more time, if you look at the photos and the video, Ramsey was burnt. Like if
Chase beat him once again.
If Burrow had, let's say, another 10, 15 seconds of time, it's a touchdown. And we're talking about a whole different scenario. Jaylen Ramsey, I've always said this, he is probably one of the most gifted cornerbacks we've seen since maybe Sherman. Like he's a freak athlete, but there's always been that his mouth has always just kind of, there's always been something, right? He always says something and then they try to disprove, there's just a lot of, it's Jaylen Ramsey being Jaylen Ramsey, whatever. I will say this. I think if, again, I go back to the offensive line, if Burrow just throughout the game took, let's say, 4 sacks instead of 7 or 3 instead of 7, you're talking about a different game. Like, let's be honest, Burrow was in some cases at some times kind of picking through the defense a little bit. Look at T. Higgins, 4 catches, 100 yards. Jamar Chase, 5 catches, 89 yards. Tyler Boyd, 5 catches, 48 yards. Like, those don't seem like crazy numbers, but you're talking against Jaylen Ramsey, like you said. And I think if you give him more time, Burrow could have really surgically went through this defense. But again, I pointed this out last spring that the Bengals should have drafted or got some type of offensive line help. And it come back to bite them. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, the offensive line. So let me tell you here, the Bengals pass block win rate in the game was 18%.
Oh my goodness.
That sounds terrible. Flip that around. That means the Rams had an 82% pass rush win rate. Burrow, like you
Oh,
said, is sacked 7 times. This entire postseason, he was sacked 19 times, which is the most out of any quarterback in playoff history. Like the man, I mean, it's honestly incredible that they made it this far with how little time they were giving him, and that they were even in this game late with a chance to either tie it and send to overtime or win it with how little time he was getting. But I mean, I think that kind of comes. I mean, I think that might be the difference maker right there.
yeah,
Because again, we go to the offensive line. If they just give him a few more seconds or even another second, maybe he finds Chase deep.
yeah, and I think there's so many crucial points in this game, right? Like, obviously, Bengals fans will tell you, what are they had offsetting penalties and all these calls, and it's like sometimes you need to look at your guys' self and like the Browns, as Browns fans, right? Josh, we say this all the time. We know what the Browns suck at. Like we know, we talk about it. We talk about what they struggle with. The Bengals fans, some have, but I've heard others that just keep going on about these refs or this or that. It's like, dude, just own up. You could block anybody. If you block people, you might win this game by 14 points. It's very reasonable.
Yeah, like
Because let's be honest. The Bengals defense didn't play that bad. If you look at it overall, they didn't play that bad. And like we've said when we talk about the Browns or the Ravens, we always say that we know what the Browns struggle with and we know what they can get better at. I just feel sometimes Bengals fans, they got so excited about the Super Bowl run. Do they actually know what they should be getting better at? That's always the question.
Yeah, it's a youthful team. You got to figure that with how young Burrow and Chase are, that this is going to be a team that's going to make a couple more runs like this in the future. They'll probably definitely learn from this. Like you said, though, the penalties I'm not so much a fan of. Like I know there were some Browns fans that were frustrated about the officiating in that Browns-Packers game on Christmas Day, the no calls that were just getting avoided on some of those clear defensive pass interferences on Peoples-Jones. But there was a lot of things that the Browns could have done on their end that game that they just didn't take care of business on. And if you're not doing things on your end to win the game, then I'm just like, you know what, the refs, leave them out of it unless you did everything right in your power and did everything you could. And then it comes down to that, then I kind of see an argument. But
I mean, we even
Bengals got to take care of things on their end.
Well, we even talked about it, Josh, we've talked about this before, like, and I've said this before, like as a coach, I coach college, I wish I coached college football, high school football. I coached high school football. And one thing coach used to always say was like, it's not our job to fix the refs. It's not our job to fix the penalties. Like it's our job to play disciplined football and to do what we know is right and like how to play. And I think fans sometimes like I actually was watching a TikTok, believe it or not, and it was Jordan Palmer, Carson Palmer's brother, who does training now for football, and he always said all of us fans think that we can figure out pro football because we've just watched enough football. Let me tell you, and he walked through like what a huddle looks like and what some of these things are. And I think we have to step back a little bit too and go, these dudes are thinking like this all the time. And it's impressive that what they do. And so again, I'm happy for Matthew Stafford. He deserved it. After all those years in Detroit, he deserved it. I'm happy the Bengals lost. Yes, I know. I am. I will not lie. I am happy. And it was a good game. And I think we could take a lot from it. What would be like what would be your top 2 takeaways from the game itself that either were changes, like swift changes in the game, or things that you think really helped solidify the Rams winning or the Bengals losing?
If you got to sum this up in 2 things, I think number one, make sure that your offensive line is at least average, because I think that was the most detrimental thing to the Bengals. But then also put the ball in the hands of your playmakers in the important situations. The Rams did that with Kupp. There were some people that were complaining about the last drive that the Bengals had. I think Samaje Perine, their backup or third string running back, I don't know where he lines up on the depth chart, but he's getting a carry. He's also on the field for like a couple plays, and everybody's like, why are they giving the ball to Samaje Perine in a situation where they need to score? Like, why is Joe Mixon not in that situation? Why are they even putting the ball in Perine's hands? Why aren't they looking for, Chase or Higgins or like one of these other guys? So, and then you flip flop to the Rams side, like they're in a situation where they're in a 4th and 1 that they need to convert to take the lead, and they put the ball in Kupp's hands. When they get down to that red zone, who are they looking for? They're looking for Cooper Kupp. the Offensive Player of the Year, the NFL Triple Crown winner, all those things. He also, let me read you all of his accomplishments now that the season is over.
Crazy. It's crazy.
First in receptions, yards, and touchdowns for the Triple Crown, the fourth wide receiver to do so. Second most receptions ever in a season. Second most season receiving yards ever. 6 touchdowns in the playoffs, second most ever. Most receptions in a single postseason. Super Bowl MVP. The only wide receivers in history to win a Triple Crown and a Super Bowl MVP are Jerry Rice and Cooper Kupp now. Yeah, so Cooper, I mean,
and he was I remember Josh, he was a 0-star recruit. Is that correct? He was a 0-star recruit. Yeah. Was told by major colleges, you will never make it at the next level. And look where he is. And that just shows you, Josh, and I think that's a lesson we all can learn, that you can't quit just because people have told you or people have said you can't do it. I think that's a big thing we got to take away from that too. Yeah. And so I think it was a great game. I would say my 2 biggest takeaways from this game would be, I think it shows that defense wins championships still. I think it shows it, and it's made it very clear that if you get after the quarterback, if you stop the team when you need to stop them, it makes a difference. I think the second thing would be discipline. I think that goes to 2 different layers. I think you look at the Rams, they were disciplined. They knew exactly what they needed to do. They executed. You look at the Bengals, they executed at times, but they had penalties. They had obviously the offensive line troubles. I think that's the thing you look at. Championship teams, and I bet you can attest to this, championship teams are very they execute and they have great defenses. Name me a team that didn't. And that's the thing. You might not have had a great defense, but you knew when to get stops. And I think that's the thing that we talk about the Browns, right? Like the Browns are good at times, but they can't execute. They can't always deliver. And I think that makes the difference with teams. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I mean, we've been talking about why the 49ers have gotten as far as they did this season. And it was mostly like a defensive focused team. So I think that's a good point to make too, is that the defense still can make an impact in this game like it did with Aaron Donald, Von Miller each getting 2 sacks. So a couple other stats that I wanted to show you from the offensive side that I thought were kind of interesting was that Matthew Stafford had 0 playoff wins before winning this first Super Bowl. Ooh. He also had 95 losses, which were the most by a starting quarterback before getting their first ring.
He can thank Detroit for that.
Also, Matthew Stafford, the only 2 quarterbacks who have won a Super Bowl in their first year with the team are Tom Brady and Matthew Stafford, and both also did it in their home stadiums, the first 2 to do so. So, kind of a segue into maybe a little rabbit hole discussion.
Yeah, of course.
Here. Is going all in on a quarterback like the Buccaneers did with Tom Brady and the Rams have with Matthew Stafford the move? Is somebody going to do that this offseason with Aaron Rodgers? Is it going to be the Colts or the Broncos? And then are they going to be the next Super Bowl team?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's something that it's a fascinating take, right? Because there's 2 ways you can go at it, right? Like you need a quarterback. So there's 2 ways. You can go draft one and hope that they're good. In this year's draft class, it's not the greatest group of quarterbacks. Or you go and you spend $30 million for a year to have a quarterback come in and hope you can win it all, right?
What did the Rams give up? Like 2 or 3
they gave
picks?
2 first-rounders, I believe.
Was it 2 first-rounders in Goff?
In Goff. And let's be honest, Goff wasn't going to win you a Super Bowl. That's just, I mean.
He's good enough to get him there, but we see the differences here. What did the Lions do when they swapped out Stafford for Goff?
They got worse.
Had one of the worst seasons in the league.
Yeah, and so I think those are the 2 takes you have. You either draft a quarterback, you sign a veteran. Let's be honest, there's not going to be another Tom Brady. There's not going to be, a Drew Brees. Aaron Rodgers is out there. Now, do I think a team is going to make it to the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers? What do you have around him? This is what I'll say. Look at the Buccaneers. Look at the Rams. What did they have? They didn't just go all in on a quarterback and then have a bunch of nobodies.
That wasn't the only thing that they had going.
The Buccaneers,
all the other pieces around, right?
Buccaneers already had Godwin. They had They had Evans. They got Antonio Brown at the time. They got Gronk when Tom Brady came in. Gronk, right?
He brought Fournette in as well,
and they had a good defense.
Got a couple other defensive dudes too,
and they already had a good defense, and that's the difference. So this is my take. We all know that Gronkowski, that's just a side rant. Gronkowski's going to the Bengals. According to him, that's where he's going. Please no, I don't want to deal with that for the next year. But I will say this. I think, let's just hypothetically say Rodgers go to the Broncos. He has a decent offensive core. Decent. It's not going to be all-stars necessarily, superstars. The Colts would be the more logical move. You go to the Colts, you have, if not the best young running back outside of Nick Chubb and Henry, it's Taylor, right? Like, he's had a freak year. And you have a great defense, a pretty good defense. So my take is, I'm not all in. I'm not sold on the idea that you go all in on a quarterback unless you have the backing and the setup to do it. That's my take. I don't feel you should go on in unless you have the setup.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone on rants on this channel too about how I don't think you need that top 5 or top 3, that elite quarterback to be a serious contender. Because, like I said, the Niners were in the Final Four with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. Now, if they have like a Aaron Rodgers or a Matt Stafford or a Joe Burrow, are they making the Super Bowl? Perhaps, because like you said, they had all the other pieces right. They had a Deebo Samuel at receiver. They had a strong running game. They had a defense that was winning them games, honestly. Mm-hmm. And then all these other teams that you just mentioned, like the Buccaneers, they and I guess the Rams too this season, they had like all the other pieces right.
Yep.
Around them, and they just were missing that quarterback
and a good coach, and they had a good coach.
Good coaching.
That's the other thing.
Bruce Arians and Sean McVay too. So I don't know who the Broncos hired the Packers OC whose name escapes me, but that's who's coaching them right now. They have young receivers like I think Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and KJ Hamler are who Rodgers will be working with, and I'm not sure that's exactly a step up from Allen Lazard and Devontae Adams. I think that actually might be a step down. Broncos defense is very good though, and Javonte Williams, running back, is seems to be like an up and coming star. But
they have Fant as a tight end.
Yeah, so maybe if they did make the move to bring Rodgers over, he attracts a couple guys. Maybe he brings Adams over.
That's what I was thinking.
Because
does
Brady
he bring
attracted a couple of these guys too?
Yeah, and so I think, I would say probably the more, if you're Rodgers, where does your loyalty lie? We all know that his loyalty pretty much is money. I hate to say it, but that's kind of what he's shown is, I want the money, and if you're not going to pay me, I don't want to be here. And I think that's where we're going to start looking is who's going to drop the most money. We might see a $40-45 million quarterback. We easily might see that. And again, what is your take on this? I want to throw this out. Would you say, if you're, let's say, the Colts or the Broncos, and you get Rodgers, do you go ahead and do you draft a quarterback behind him? That's my question.
I think we got to look at another team that drafted a quarterback behind Rodgers, the Packers, taking Jordan Love, and see how well that really worked out. That kind of just made Rodgers angry. Now,
but I
that
think
was a few seasons ago, and Rodgers is older than he is now. So it might make a little bit more sense because, and I'm sure Rodgers also in this situation would know that he's about on his way out. But I think he also would know that if a team made a trade for him and unleashed 30 to 40 million or whatever the heck they're going to pay him, that they're not planning on having that new rookie be the quarterback.
Exactly.
So this situation is a little different. Tampa Bay kind of did the same thing, drafting Kyle Trask in the second round. I can't remember which move came first though, getting Tom or getting Trask.
It was Tom and then Trash.
Okay.
Trash. Sorry about that. A little slippage there.
But a similar situation to that.
But I would say this,
maybe it wouldn't be the worst move. But I also think maybe this season, with the lack of popular quarterback picks, maybe it would be better to go out and get Rodgers a weapon, and then the next season, I think the quarterback class can be a little better, and maybe address that
trade up to get a CJ Stroud or a Bryce Young or something like that, where you get a guy that can, because this is the thing. Aaron Rodgers, the issue with last time is they wouldn't want to pay him. The difference now is that they're going to pay him. That's the big, I think, difference. And also by the way, Aaron Rodgers has won back-to-back MVPs. It's not like this guy's a slouch. This dude is going to get his money wherever he goes. Would it be funny though? I'm going to throw this out here. And I could be walking up a death trap right now, right? Would it be interesting to see Aaron Rodgers go to the Arizona Cardinals and Murray, who's trying to, I don't know what he's doing, he's mad, go to the Packers? Wouldn't that be an interesting swap?
Kind of like how we just saw with Goff and Stafford then.
Exactly. You see like a sign and trade type deal, where you send Rodgers, which by the way, he would do amazing in the desert. That's like where all the old guys go anyways. Or I read this article that someone said, oh, what if he goes to the Patriots? I'm like, please not. Let's just not do this whole like Belichick gets another quarterback again. Like, he has his guy. Let's leave it alone. I would take him to the Browns. That's my question. This is my hypothetical for the day. Would you take Aaron Rodgers at his age now, 38 or whatever he is, 39? Or would you take one more year of Baker and then figure out what's next?
People have been asking me before, and this was even during Baker's like second season and third season and fourth season, and maybe I'm just stubborn, but I wouldn't want Aaron Rodgers in the building. I think that Baker is going to be our guy. I think he fits our offense better. I think that Baker is a Cleveland guy, likes the team, wants to see the city win. I really think this last season was
a fluke,
only affecting him because of his injuries. Yeah. I think his first season and his third season, we saw the kind of quarterback he can be. And I think that's more of the true Baker Mayfield, the real Baker Mayfield that I think we're going to see stand up. So do I want to throw away potentially a whole career of having Baker Mayfield in exchange for 2 seasons of Rodgers? Given the circumstances in Cleveland, we see that we don't really do too well at getting quarterbacks. And I think now that we've got one, we need to just settle down and keep him and center this offense around him and move forward with Baker. I really think that this season he's going to be fully recovered and he's going to be back to his normal self. So I am against bringing Rodgers in. I don't think we need him. I'm not doubting that we could win games with him, but I don't really think it makes us like, or puts us over the edge, if that makes sense, because he isn't doing that with the Packers already.
Yeah. And I agree with you. And, we could go on and we're going to talk about like our predictions for next year, everyone. So we're going to give our our way too early predictions. And in a few weeks, we'll be coming out with our mock drafts because we just kind of had to wait for all this stuff to settle. And we'll get to see who we think is going to go where. And if there's a quarterback in the top 10, which I'll be honest, sneak peek, I have one. Fun fact. So that's a little preview. But before we move on past the Super Bowl, Josh, we've been watching Super Bowls, let's see, for most of our lives, right? We've watched with our families. Lately, the halftime shows have been pretty crap. Let's be blunt. Been pretty bad. Not really entertaining. But before we talk about the halftime show, can we talk about the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? By the way, that was one of the most epic like intros that gave me chills. Like, can the Browns have that every home game? I'll take it. Right? Like, so what do you think about The Rock? Before we talk about the halftime show, which we'll talk to in a second, what did you think about The Rock?
Everybody likes The Rock, right? He's a super motivating guy. If you listen to him in the WWE fights, I mean, he always gets the crowds getting amped. So I think if you're going to bring in a guy for that role, they picked a great person to do it. I
just think it was funny that like they chose the Bengals last and like it was so loud for the Rams and then you hear the Bengals. And
that's like, also kind of expected, the Rams being the home team though.
Yeah,
right?
It was just like the Cincinnati Bengals and there was like the old ladies like raising their hands and just like cheering. Yeah. But going on the halftime show, this is where kind of you probably like was like a little kid inside that just kind of got all excited. Tell me your thoughts when you saw all those guys come up. What were your thoughts for the halftime show?
Yeah, so I'll tell you what I thought when I initially saw the lineup. I was like, they actually are gonna have a good show here. Like we've seen most recently,
the last good one was Prince. The Prince was the last good one. That was the last good one.
I was too young to really remember that one. but more recently, we've seen The Weeknd.
The Weeknd, yep.
We've seen Jennifer Lopez and Shakira. We've seen Bruno Mars. We've seen Travis Scott. We have seen Katy Perry. And I mean, these are all bad. Like, they're all modern artists that most people probably listen to that are mainstream. So that's cool, whatever. It's just like, for me personally, I'm not really a fan of today's music. I don't think it's that good. I think it's very there's not as much talent.
It's more about making the money than it is about making art. That's quoting Dr. Dre, by the way.
How many artists too do you see that are like basically one and done because they have like one cool song pop and then like we forget about it and we forget about them?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the artists of say the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, the reason people still listen to them is because their music was that good. And I mean, even Eminem is still making music to this day. I think he dropped an album in 2020. So when I initially saw this lineup, I was like, this is actually going to be a pretty good show. And I think it lived up to the hype. Everybody was loving it. I've seen so many tweets saying like, this is clearly the best halftime show ever. The one thing that I have a bone to pick about it with everybody's reactions is the jokes that people have been making about if you have a colonoscopy due soon, you probably were excited about this halftime show. And it's like, whoa. We're not talking about like halftime shows like people getting excited for like The Who or, you know, like Tom Petty or any bands from like the 60s or 70s. Like, we're not that old. Like, people that grew up listening to Dre and Snoop and Mary J. Blige and Eminem are like all in their 20s and 30s. Like, colonoscopies, I mean, that's like 50s and 60s.
Well, yeah, and it was funny because even Hungarians here that like watched some of the highlights or they like heard about, they were asking me about like, what's your thoughts? And I was like, at school today, and I was like, you know, honestly, it was cool because like it felt like also like this, it felt like as your family, like obviously most of these, like especially lately, a lot of them like you didn't want to watch it with your kids. This one I felt like they kept it clean and you could enjoy listening to Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre without feeling like you're gonna put your kid into like a hospital or something, you know, like it just mess you up, right? And I thought it was just an amazing, like the way you brought history of hip hop and the history of that style of music and you brought it to life and at the biggest stage, at the biggest game. That was just amazing. And I watched the highlight of it. I couldn't stop watching. I was like, this is freaking awesome. Like, this is so cool.
I think their style of music too is probably more in style with like the NFL and with what the players listen to. Like, how many players you think are coming into game day? You know, we all see them come in with like their suits on and they got their headphones in. You think they're listening to Shakira? Do you think they're maybe more likely listening to some Snoop and Dre and Eminem?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it really fits with the NFL, the Cali vibe. A lot of people too, I think the only knock that I really saw was everybody wanted the hologram of Tupac, which has apparently been done before when they did California. In LA, I think you kind of got to do that. But if that's the only thing we can complain about from this show, I mean, that I can take it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I'll be honest. And it was so cool to see from regular people to celebrities. Everyone was enjoying it. There's videos of, you know, celebrities enjoying it. And it was just like, this was something that the world needed right now. I'll be totally honest with you. The world needed to enjoy a football game, enjoy a halftime show, and really just really enjoy it. And I think that was the really cool part. And I think it goes down as one of my favorite halftime shows of all time. And I didn't even watch it live. So
I gotta agree with you too, that it was a clean one, like you said. Like, I think some of these shows, like sometimes, you know, they're trying to throw in sexual images or political messages or just other like stuff like that, and they make the show like they don't really make the show about the show. And I think the reason that everybody was able to enjoy it is because it was just about the music.
And it's taken away politics away from sports, which we've talked about here on here a lot, which is important. So I think that was really cool. Now, obviously, I didn't watch it live, and with watching highlights of it, I missed. Was there any good commercials, Josh? Was there anything that I missed commercial-wise that I wish I would have seen? See, that right there just shows me. That right there shows me.
like we were saying last week, Ben, I think the commercials have kind of gone down. I think you might enjoy the Doritos ad that went up. Obviously, Budweiser did another feel good ad with the horse and the
Of
dog.
course, the horse and the dog. It's always
Yeah,
feel good.
everybody always likes those. Trying to think of another one. There's another one with Dr. Evil, Austin Powers. I can't remember whose ad it was though. I think it was some car ad. But
Kind of sad.
Yeah.
Wow, it's getting sadder, Josh. As we get older, the commercials get worse. And you would think with the amount of money they're making, they could throw a good ad in there too.
The other ad that everybody's been talking about is the one. I think it was Coinbase. They had a QR code on the screen, and a lot of people, I guess, were scanning it into their phones. The only problem was Coinbase didn't do anything on their part to keep their website from crashing. And I guess so many people were on the website eventually crashed. So they spent all this money for this ad that was going to drive traffic to their site and get people to buy cryptocurrency. But they didn't spend any money to make sure that their website had enough like a bandwidth or whatever the heck you need. I'm not like a tech guy, but you need to be able to handle that much traffic. And I guess their website couldn't handle it and then eventually shut down.
That is hilarious. That's called.
Actually, that might be the most, I guess, memorable commercial because of the aftermath.
That's just funny. That's just classic right there, right? Classic. So, Josh, with the 2021-2022, I guess technically part of the season, with this season ending, as we look back on this year of the NFL, what are some of your highlights from the NFL season? And then we'll move into predictions after that. So what are some of your highlights from this last NFL season?
Well, let's start with some of the records, right? Like Cooper Kupp just had capped off one of the best, actually the best receiving season in NFL history. I think just any time watching him play was probably a highlight. Tom Brady ending his career with some of the most incredible numbers we've ever seen. One of his best seasons. Unfortunately, he didn't get to walk out with one more ring, though.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other highlights. Let's see here. I think the playoffs as a whole, once we got past wildcard weekend and all the blowouts, was a blast. There are a lot of close games, a lot of games that are coming down to field goals, one-score games. I think that was a highlight in itself. Maybe the NFL can do something to adjust the playoff brackets. I don't really think we need that eighth team because
I agree.
I think it just led to more blowouts in the wild card weekend. Like those games weren't really exciting to watch at all. Yeah. So let's see. Any other highlights that we got to see this year? Any more records? Trying to think, man. That Chiefs Bills game, everybody's been saying
pretty good.
Like the best game this season. I think the Raiders being able to overcome all their adversity just to get to the playoffs was a cool story. That is everything that is coming to my mind right now, off the top of my head. But do you have anything to add to that? Anything I might be forgetting?
No, I do. I think for me it was the Browns being terrible. I'm just kidding. I'm just trying. I'm trying to get happy. No, honestly, I think my biggest thing would be, I think the craziness of adding this 18th week or 17th game or whatever. I'm still not sold on it. Right? Like do we need to play that long? Do we there's a lot of, I just have mixed feelings about it.
It did knock the Colts out of the playoffs.
Yeah. It just, to me, it's also weird when you're like, there's no more 500 teams. Like, it's just weird to me. I'm always used to seeing like 8-8. Now you can never be 8-8 anymore unless you get a tie. But yeah, I would agree with you. A lot of the records, I think, TJ Watt being who he was, again, I saw a record, by the way, the most defensive players of the year in the last 7 of the last 10 defensive players of the years was either Aaron Donald or a Watt brother, which is just weird and kind of creepy at the same time. Yeah, again, I just think it was really interesting. It was a great season. I actually watched NFL more this year. Last year, I didn't watch it outside of the Browns making the playoffs and stuff. I think because less politics, honestly. I think it made me want to watch it more, and I got to enjoy football, which is something I love to watch. So, yeah, it was a good year, an interesting year in and of itself. So, All right, Josh. We are gonna make some not a lot of predictions, just some like way too early predictions. We'll finish this. We'll say the Super Bowl for last, but there's just gonna be three categories, right? Um, Most improved team for next year. A team that was in the playoffs that won't make the playoffs, and if any, you don't have to have any. I'm just throwing it out there. And then the last section is your either most improved player, or you can do MVP, one of the two. So I can go first. So I will start just to give you some time to process. My team for kind of, I guess, gonna be in the playoffs next year, or I think that's going to rise from the ashes, would be, and I believe this wholeheartedly. I this sounds so biased when I'm about to say this. I think the Browns, like I'm going to be 100% with you. I think the Browns will go from being a very subpar team this year in relative terms to, I believe that the Browns will win. I'm predicting now 12 wins. We'll make it to the conference championship game. That's what I'm going to say. Conference championship. So that's my team that it did not make the playoffs that will be in the playoffs next year.
Yeah, I'm trying to think through this too. I'd like to say the Browns. It's just kind of in my mind, we don't really need to improve that much because I feel like we got all the pieces. We just didn't execute or have the coaching or the health. But in terms of record, it would be an improvement if we are making it to the conference championship game. So that could be one. I'm thinking more. I'm trying to think of maybe more of a hot take one, like maybe a team that's picking kind of early in the draft.
Okay.
That could have a quick turnaround, kind of like how the Bengals kind of went from number one pick to Super Bowl in 2 years. Not necessarily that a team will improve that much, but I'm trying to think more of like in those terms. But I'm only able to think of some bubble teams right now. Like I'm thinking of like
the Panthers, maybe one. The Panthers
seem like that could be one if they can get the quarterback position right.
The Jaguars.
I don't know if they can do it. They would be in the same boat, but I don't know if they can do it.
I've always said, like, I think the Panthers are there. They're really close. The Colts, and I believe the Broncos as well. I think those three teams are like the three teams that I think could really change it around. That's another one
too. Maybe the Chargers too. They were really close. The Ravens, maybe if they have better health or getting in. Yeah, there's a lot of different teams that we could see. Just going with the Dolphins, if this Mike McDaniel dude ends up being a good coach for him, if Tua can actually be a functional quarterback, yeah, there's a lot of them up. Maybe I'll just join you on the Browns and be a homer. I don't know.
But yeah, do what you want.
I'm seeing a lot of potential from other teams though. Too.
All right, so we go from team that is not in the playoffs. Is there a team out there that made the playoffs this year that you're like, I just don't think they're going to do it again next year?
Yeah, the first team that comes to mind is the Steelers. They kind of got lucky getting in to begin with, and now they definitely don't have Ben. We're going to have to see what they decide to do with that quarterback spot. They're the first team that comes to mind, but also the second one is the Buccaneers, because now they have to live without Tom Brady at quarterback now. And how much is that going to change this team? Because without Tom Brady, they were a 7-9 team with Jameis Winston. Who's going to be filling in for them? That obviously could affect how their record goes a little bit. So I would like to see who their quarterbacks going to be first. But with Pittsburgh, I don't think that they are going to even have the pieces that Tampa Bay already has in house, and they already barely squeaked in. So I'm gonna throw out Pittsburgh.
So I was going to go with you on Pittsburgh, mainly because one of my American friends that lives here in Hungary, he's a huge Steelers fan, and he just gave it to me all year. But now he doesn't say anything to me. I wonder why. And so I was going to say Steelers. I'm actually going to throw a wild card out here. I think the 49ers. Now, they have a good defense, but what's going to happen at quarterback? Is Trey Lance ready? That's my only.
I would think
that's
Trey
my
Lance
question.
QB, yeah.
So
one more I'll throw out too. We're assuming that Rodgers won't be back in Green Bay, so
that is true. Yeah,
fall out of the playoffs.
Yeah. Now. So our picks. So if you're listening, some of our picks are the Steelers, the 49ers, the Packers, and
the Bucks,
the Buccaneers. Right. So I agree with all of those. It should be very interesting. Now, on to what either our most improved player or who we think will be the MVP next year. If you have one, I'll let you go first because mine is a kind of interesting one. So I want to hear hear your thought. Which one are you doing? Are you going to most improved, or are you going to do MVP?
Let's think through most improved first. And I think, what do I think about that?
I think you know your answer in your heart, Josh. I think I know where you want to go with this. I think you're on the road. He's usually a Baker. I feel like you might be maybe pulling out a Baker Mayfield for the most improved.
Yeah, I guess I'm just not thinking of like those guys, because to me they just already have it, and he just needs to get healthy. And I think if
look at Burrow though. Burrow needed to be healthy, and once he got healthy, he won it. I'm just saying.
That's true. It could be Baker. He definitely would be up there. But to me, he's like kind of already there. So I'm thinking more so like a rookie that maybe flashed potential this year, or maybe even a guy like Cooper Kupp that was kind of good, but then just exploded into superstardom. That's kind of where my mind is going right now. Let me hear what.
Yes. So my name is someone that probably is in that probably could be a star thing, but is Trevor Lawrence. I think Trevor Lawrence with a new coach, a new coordinator, I think fresh start. I think Trevor Lawrence could be a guy that puts up 25 touchdowns, maybe like 10 picks, throws for 4,000 yards. I believe he has somewhat of a team around him. Again, that's kind of up in the air, but I believe Trevor Lawrence is a guy that can go from having a really, really bad year to having a really good year, and not maybe making the Jaguars a playoff team, but hey, let's get him to 8 wins, 7 wins, something like that. That's my pick.
I would like to see Trevor explode into that role. You hate to see a dude like that end up having like bad circumstances.
Oh, it was a terrible year.
You're like you would like to just see like them be able to put all the pieces around him, and then if he fails, it's on him instead of the organization kind of screwing him over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Most improved. What if
J.K. Dobbins would be good. That was my other thought, by the way. That was my second choice.
Yeah,
J.K. Dobbins was my second choice.
He never got a chance though, because he tore his ACL before the season started, right?
Yeah, and so he never got to play this year. That was my second choice, really.
Yeah, he could do the same kind of thing that Jonathan Taylor kind of did, where he kind of is settling into like a rookie role, gets close to 1,000, and then next season has like an MVP caliber season. Just didn't win it.
I think one that could be would be Deebo Samuel, like kind of going even farther than what he did this year. I mean, he had a good year, but his numbers weren't necessarily like jaw-dropping numbers. That's another guy I was thinking of too, just because of his versatility and then what he can be.
That's true. Yeah.
Or even on the defense side of the ball too. There's always that choice too.
Yeah.
Like a Jadeveon Clowney. Like, what if Clowney goes out and gets 13 sacks next year and turns into a horse?
That would be cool. Yeah. I'd like to see that in Cleveland, as long as he's doing it in Cleveland.
True.
Yeah.
I think you could. Yeah, I mean, you could probably say there's multiple guys. I mean, you don't have to pick one. I was just, we chat about it.
There's a lot of potential there. Yeah. I'll tell you. I'll go ahead and throw out an MVP name and a guy that I thought had to win it this year.
Yeah, for sure.
I think preseason I picked Josh Allen to win it. But Buffalo might be that team next year. At least they got potential to be.
Yeah, and we'll talk about Super Bowl picks here. Josh Allen was actually one of my choices in this. He's kind of like one of those guys that'll be in the top 3, I think. But my choice for MVP, and I was really stuck on it, right? Like, I hate to go non-quarterback because I feel like I'm sinning going non-quarterback. I feel like I'm
see non-quarterbacks win it. Just we're picking who we think will win. I don't think they'll ever pick a non-QB.
I am going to. I don't care if people call me biased. I don't care if people say that I care way too much about the Browns. I don't care. I'm wearing his jersey for a reason, people. And I believe in the Chubb train. Yes, I called it the Chubb train, and I don't care what people think. Nick Chubb will win the MVP next year because if he's healthy, and I've said this all along, if he's healthy and they pass him the ball and hand the ball off to him, he's a guy that runs for close to 2,000 yards, gets 500 yards receiving. I'm just saying, that might be biased, but I've said for the last 2 years he's the best overall. Maybe not player. He's at least the best overall running back, if not a top 5 player in the league.
I believe in Nick Chubb too, Ben. But let me ask you, what kind of a stat line is he going to need to win this MVP? Because we've seen Christian McCaffrey set records with like 100 catches and 1,000 rushing yards, and that wasn't good enough. We've seen Derrick Henry rush for 2,000 yards, and that wasn't good enough. Jonathan Taylor, 1,800 yards, that wasn't good enough. What's it going to take, Ben?
I think it would take
from the QBs.
I think it would take him. I think it has to have a really good yards per carry. I think that's a huge thing, right? Like if he averages at least 5 to 6 yards a carry, I think he has to run for at least 2,300 yards, which is a record, by the way. That just shows how good it has to be. Anywhere from 2,000 to 2,300 yards. I think it has to be in that number. You can't not. And then I think he's going to have at least 500 yards receiving, and then also just look the part. Like when you watch a game, you have to look the part. So that's again, it might be unrealistic, but this is why it's a prediction. That might be totally wrong, but maybe I'll shock the world. Maybe I shock the world.
I would personally love to see that. I believe, just like you, that Nick Chubb is the best running back in the NFL. I just need Kevin Stefanski to give him the amount of attempts necessary. Let me tell you, Ben, if he's going to rush for 2,300 yards on 6 yards a carry, which both would be career highs for him, that means that he would need to rush 383 times.
Which, by the way, Henry has ran that a couple times.
He has, but the most carries Chubb has gotten in a season is 298.
Because Stefanski doesn't know how to just trust what you got.
So that means that Chubb is going to need about 100 more carries.
But also, he's been injured, though, too. Like, he hasn't been completely healthy, which I think also plays a factor.
That plays into it, too. Yeah. I would love to see Chubb win it, but if we're going by who I think will win it, I don't think they're going to give it to.
Okay, if I have a quarterback option and not Nick Chubb, my quarterback option.
Who do you think that will actually get voted, as opposed to who should win it?
This is who should win it is Chubb.
Because Cooper Kupp was in regular season.
Yes, MVP. I would say who's going to win it. I hate to say this. It sounds so like Patrick Mahomes. Like I hate to say it. He is kind of ticked off right now about the way the season ended. And we've seen when Mahomes is on, it's kind of crazy. I just think that if he has all of his weapons and he's the one quarterback that's going to have all of his weapons outside of Stafford, I mean, I think he and Allen, I think it could be down to like Allen, Stafford, and Mahomes. I really do. I think that's going to be next year. Oh, and Aaron Rodgers, wherever he goes.
That was another one I was thinking too, is like it wouldn't be too wild for Rodgers to win a third straight MVP if he took a new team that he got traded to that missed the playoffs to the playoffs and also had like his insane passer rating and only 3 interceptions or whatever that people make a big deal about.
Yeah. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Now to finish up the 2 things to finish up to this week. One, let's do way too early Super Bowl prediction. I think I know where you might be going. You might know where I'm going. I don't know. We'll see. Josh, give me your way too early, way too early Super Bowl prediction.
I think right now in the moment, it'd be tempting to pick the Rams to come out of NFC again, but we've seen how hard it is to repeat. So I'm going to avoid that temptation. I'm going to avoid picking the Packers because like we were talking, they might miss the playoffs, not having Aaron Rodgers if our predictions come true, which leaves us with a couple options here, which would be I'm not going to go Dallas. I don't believe in them.
No one does, Josh. No one does.
Yeah, I'm not going to go with Tampa. Obviously, we don't think that they're going to be back in the playoffs, or at least there's a chance that they're not going to be. So, man, dude, that NFC.
I'll tell you, for me, the NFC team for me, and this is all about, there's 2 teams that I could think could sneak up, which is the team we didn't mention when we said they might make the playoffs, the Seahawks. We didn't even touch about them. We don't know what they're going to be like. I'm not saying, we'll see. My NFC team is, I'm going to say for the NFC, and this could be a really long stretch. I'm leaning more towards the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals had a fluke year this year. So I think I'm going to go with the Cardinals for the NFC. I think it's going to be Rams Cardinals in the NFC West showdown in the NFC Championship game. But again, I could go so many different ways with this, but I don't trust the Panthers, the Saints, Buccaneers, Falcons, Vikings, Lions, Bears. I just don't trust any of these teams. So I'm going to have to say the Arizona Cardinals. And then the AFC, Josh, you might be shocked when I say this. Probably not.
I'm not going to be.
I might shock you a little bit. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say I'm not going to say the Chiefs. I'm going to say the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills. It'll be the Bills versus Browns in my AFC Championship game, and I think the Bills will make it. It'll be Bills versus the Cardinals, and I believe the Bills will win a Super Bowl and win 28-21 next year. Mark it down right now. Ben said it. Bills versus Cardinals. Bills win 28.
I was leaning Buffalo myself too, just because of Allen's winning MVP in my mind. Way too early predictions. That must mean that Buffalo had a really great season. It's just so the AFC looks like the conference right now with KC and with Tennessee. Our AFC North division could go a lot of different directions too. That NFC, man, we're seeing an end of an era for some of these teams. So it's kind of tough to say because we're already ruling out Tampa Bay. And Green Bay.
The Commanders. The commies. The commies are going to be there.
Yeah, I'm ruling out Green Bay and Tampa Bay because I don't think they're going to have their quarterbacks. I'm ruling out the Rams because getting back to the Super Bowl back-to-back seasons is just so tough to do. I'm ruling out Dallas because I think that they're just the joke of the NFC. So it really kind of limits my options. And I got to say something wild. Do I say that it's going to be Philly? Do I say that it's going to be Minnesota? Do I say it's going to be the Cardinals like yourself? Or do I think that Trey Lance is going to be that dude and take San Francisco? Man, I'm kind of limiting my options here to the point that it's going to have to be a bold prediction. But in the name of bold predictions, let's go with I'm going to agree with you on Buffalo and the AFC, but I'm going to say it's going to be San Francisco at the NFC.
Ooh. What's your prediction of the score? Who do you think is going to come on top? So I got the Bills winning it all. So that's what I got.
Well, I got to think that the 49ers are going to have a better offense if Trey Lance is being that dude and getting them over that hump that Jimmy G.
And they'll have Trey Sermon back. They'll have Trey Sermon back as well.
They'll have Trey Sermon back as well. That is true. Buffalo has a solid defense. I think the 49ers got a little bit better of a defense. This one could be like a 24-28 kind of thing, maybe.
Ooh. So your winner would be who again? Who's your winner?
We'll go with Buffalo.
All right. So
I'm much more sure of Buffalo making it than I am San Francisco.
You heard it here. On February 14th, Valentine's Day, 2022, Josh and Ben predict the Buffalo Bills will win the Super Bowl. Even though in our hearts we believe the Browns will win the Super Bowl, but we can't say that because we're Browns fans and we'll just look like
You've already given the Browns too many awards.
Exactly. I already gave them so much. Anyways, to finish up the episode, I'm going to give you your weekly question, Josh, because this is what I do during study hall. I say that every week. That's what I do. This is your question. This is actually a fun one. If you had the chance to go to a Super Bowl and you could bring one person to the Super Bowl, I'm probably going to get in trouble by answering this, but I'm just going to go with it. One person, who would it be and why? One person. You can get sentimental on me if you want. It's okay.
Yeah. A lot of different routes you can go here. Do you bring your dad who got
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Do you bring a brother who also is a big time football fan? I got 3 to choose from though, and I think you only have the one, so that's probably a little easier for you. Or do you pick a best friend? Because that's another moment memory you can make with a friend too.
But see, I have the wife though, and that's the hard one.
Oh yes, I am single, so I don't have to worry about that. I don't think I would roll with my dad though, just because I know he doesn't like to go to huge crowd events like that there's a lot of people at. He's also not as much into football now as I am, so I don't think he would be too upset if I didn't pick him in this situation.
Okay.
Now, do I pick a brother and make the other two angry? Or do I just say, you know what? We're just gonna go with a buddy. This is what we'll do, man. Sorry, brothers, but we will roll with and you know him too. Do you remember Andrew Yunt from Cedarville?
Oh yeah.
I'll go with Andrew. We've
Okay.
talked about going to big time sporting events before, and it's just never worked out. But I think the Super Bowl would just be like absolutely incredible.
I mean,
We'll
I
roll
get
with
it.
that.
Well, also, we actually have a Cedarville former alumni. What's his name? He does real estate down in Cincinnati, but he went to the Super Bowl. I thought it was kind of cool. Him and a bunch of Danny Barron. I don't know if you know Danny Barron. I don't know if you know that name, but he went to the Super Bowl, which is kind of funny. Anyways, I would. Okay, so I have a wife, but she's like your dad and does not like big events, like at all. Doesn't like to be around people. So, like in a big crowded area. So, and she's from Hungary. Like she knows football, but maybe she would. I don't know. But I know who I would choose. It would be my brother. No, because he's a Bengals fan. And dear Lord, if the Bengals were at the just kidding. It wouldn't be my brother. It would have to be my dad. And I say this because, Dad, I love you. Because my dad was like the biggest Browns fan. Like if it was the Browns, for sure my dad. If it was any other team, it would probably be like one of my really good friends from high school. But yeah, I would say that my dad, probably like 85% of the time, that would be my choice. It would just be fun to like go do a father-son trip. We've done a lot of father-son trips, but to go to the Super Bowl, but I wouldn't pay $9,000. It would have to be free because I'm not spending $9,000 to sit in an upper deck section. That's also that's the other thing though that's ridiculous about it is that you have the Bengals first time ever, or not the first time ever, but like the chance to win your first Super Bowl. And like you have to pay that much money. Like it just seems so ridiculous to me that you have to charge that much money. And it's just
that's tough because I mean they're going to fill up the stadium regardless of what they set the price at, right?
Exactly.
Like there's 70,000 people at SoFi. So the NFL's perspective is like they made that much more money, but at the same time you are pricing it out of the range of a lot of actual fans. Yeah. So I guess how ethical do you want to get?
Probably didn't help that it was in California either. So, but yeah. So Josh and I, we appreciate you listening. We film this on Valentine's Day and, hope you all had fun with your loved ones. But we will be coming out in the next few weeks. We'll be coming out with our mock drafts. We'll be coming out with some no topics. With football season over, that means we have to change topics. I mean, the Olympics is sort of ending. I've only paid attention a little bit to it. Hungary won a gold medal, Josh. They won a gold medal in speed skating. That's right. Oh. Speed skaters.
That's a fun one to watch. The short track.
It is. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll maybe wrap up the Olympics next week, talk a little basketball. Baseball is going to be maybe, who knows, it might be coming. We don't know. There's a lot of interesting topics coming. So if you've enjoyed watching, give us a thumbs up, like it, subscribe to the channel, check it out. And also, if you listen on your car ride, make sure you have it saved so then you can just pull it up and hear our lovely voices. We did this for radio in real life. So this is just a podcast, but anyways, same thing. And on top of that, if you really enjoyed just listening, then let us know below. Let us know, comment, ask us what you want to, or let us know what you want us to talk about next. We always like talking about new topics and all that. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Until next time, we'll see ya.